All right, borrow a line from Saturday Night Live. Let's all simmer down now. Too old for you? So we've known for ages that websites can track your movement with cookies and web bugs and other fun things like that. And now we have another gang of disreputable hoodlums from West Point who are going to present a tool that will help you watch who's watching you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tara. This is Brent and Matt, and we're here to talk to you about the prevalence of third-party web tracking in everyday web use. So, although we'd like to start our discussion right away, we have to throw up this obligatory slide, which basically says that we're not here representing anybody. We're just here to talk about what we feel is an important security risk and privacy risk to web users. We'd ask that you please hold all questions until the end so that we can get through our discussion. Our focus today is primarily on the privacy concerns of third-party web tracking. As mentioned before, it's nothing new to the web. It's been around since the late 1990s, and we all know that it exists. But the longer it gets overlooked, the greater the risks become. So we'll spend our time discussing the covert tactics commonly used and the privacy issues that are associated with that, even though there is some legitimacy to what they're doing. For example, these agencies can gain a better sense of who you are and what your likes are, and thus tailor the advertising so that it suits you. This, in turn, gives them a greater sense of what would appeal to you, and thus they make more money. It's nice in my point of view because when I'm looking for the latest chick flick, I don't see a lot of ads for online poker games and the like because that doesn't appeal to me. But how much information are they actually gaining on me? And is this appropriate? Should we be concerned with how much information they're gaining and the depiction that they see of you?
So here we have a sample webpage. I've taken some measures to ensure anonymity of the website. Here I have just a few examples of what this looks like. For example, take a look up top. We have a couple ads for some cruises, those who like to travel. Next, we've got a sneak preview of a film sponsored by YouTube and Grey Goose. And finally, we have what seems to be Cupid's secret weapon. Something I've been looking for a long time, but it just turns out to be expensive jewelry from Tiffany's. So how exactly does this work? Many of you know you have a user on the computer using a web browser, and that browser will access a particular page on a server. And in this case, I'm going to IMDb, say, and I'm checking out one of my favorite movies, Scarface. It's going to call out to that server for that HTML page. And on that page are a set of instructions for resources to be called. We're going to assume right now that I'm calling to Scarface. It's reaching out to the server. That server makes a log entry. And the server, IMDb in this case, is going to use adserver.com. It's just the name we just made up. And so they're going to get a bit of information about me. Let's say I continue my browser session. I check up on my Mets, how they're doing. Again, it goes out to that server. And we're assuming again that the server from Mets.com or ESPN is using the same ad server at the bottom. Over time, you can see that the ad server can gain a fairly robust understanding of the user, and it doesn't have to be restricted to IP addresses or region. It can be all types of information that you pass just by going to see your favorite article or visiting your favorite team's website. And this is invaluable from a marketer's point of view, but it poses a significant risk for users, especially the average user who may not know what type of information is being collected out there. Next, we're going to continue on to embedded content and what it looks like out there for us with Matt.
All right, so just want to emphasize that embedded content is the primary means of third parties reaching out to the end user. So it's basically the easiest way. If you're looking back at Brent's slide, I'm just go back to of just saying, hey, I want this advertisement to show up anywhere and everywhere I want it to. So because New York Times reaches out to, say, adserver.com, it makes it really easy for them to embed as many advertisements in there as they want. So basically, any sort of embedded content advertising and affiliate networks are just, they're pairing up with people so they can get as many advertisements in there as they want. And it's actively encouraged because every time, just say there's an advertisement that gets hit by a user, then whoever is embedding that content into their website might make a couple extra dollars for that. So how exactly is this done? Every tag tells a story, which basically means In the HTML tags, you've got, scripts, videos, object players, and whatnot going in there. And it's just embedded inside the HTML. But what's important about that is that there's a source attribute on every HTML tag which says, I want you to reach out to here and grab that information. And if that's not on your main domain server and it's reaching out to somewhere else, then you are at the mercy of whoever else you reach out to say, hey, I want this information to come here. And it may not be exactly what you want, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But every time you do that, that other server is going to see your IP address and your host name. I went to a simple website just to see what they can see about me whenever I visit their website. And they said I can see your IP address and host name, my web browser and operating system, and then your country and your internet provider. So that's just the explicit information that they can gather from you. What can they actually imply from that is the more important stuff. So behavioral targeting is basically what ad servers and anyone else who wants to know anything about you is using to gather information about you. So what they're doing is they're saying, hey, this person visited Scarface, he visited imdb.com, and then he went to amazon.com. We're building a profile off of that person saying, hey, he likes movies, he likes to shop online, and he likes the New York Mets. What can we tell about him, and how can we tailor our advertisements to him? So from that, we can gather that information, and then you realize that, hey, even though I'm surfing the internet, I'm no longer anonymous. I have a digital profile, and everyone who knows who I am can go out and find me. That's the important part. So one of these companies that does it is Dakota, and they advertise how they go and do this. And if you contact them and say, hey, we want to group profile certain types of people, then it's not too hard to do that. We just say, hey, we're going to embed this content into our website, and we want you to tell us how these people interact with us. And Dakota will actually tell you exactly what kind of group profiles you're working with. So one thing we're going to talk about being at the mercy of embedded content that's actually security risk is urchin.javascript. Basically, they work with, it's from Google Analytics, and it's basically a service that they provide to other users. It's a free service, and what they do, that was almost bad. Oops, power strip down here. Did you lose color? Okay. What these guys do is they say, hey, we want to know, who's coming to our websites, and you're going to tell us for free who's coming here, and for that, we'll give up the information of who's actually visiting our website. So it's a symbiotic relationship between, say, Google and whoever else uses the website. But for this one thing, urchin.javascript, which is owned by Google, what ended up happening is, I just want to plug, this is not actually an attack on Barack Obama's old website when he was president-elect, but on his website, they actually had this JavaScript embedded in their website, and it was put on not only the main page, but the administrative pages, which means that any unscrupulous employee at Google who says, hey, I don't really like this website, then I can go and I can change up the code in urchin.javascript, and I can actually attack this website. So by reaching out to third parties and embedding content that you aren't the owner of, then you can actually pose a security risk for not only yourself and your website, but for any user who visits your website. And so this is basically what the implicit and explicit information that other web servers can gather from you. We're going to talk about our analysis methodology of how we actually gather that information.
So we wanted to see how real this problem actually was. So we went to armytimes.com. When we went to armytimes.com, we saw only the Army Times content and then one advertisement. But when we analyzed it, looking at AdBlock Plus, which is, as most of you know, a Firefox plugin, we saw that we were actually hitting 7 other places, including armytimes.com. So that kind of begged the question, what was actually going on here? So we analyzed it also at the packet level using Wireshark, and then we found even more results, hence the discrepancy between the two of them. Next, we wanted to come up with an unbiased way to determine how we could actually figure this out over the whole scope of the web. So we used Alexa to determine the top 25 sites in the United States. Alexa's a website that ranks websites based on their traffic all over the globe, but we limit it just to the United States for our purposes. We used AdBlock Plus because it was easier than using Wireshark to construct the data set of all the external objects that AdBlock Plus saw that that the website itself was calling. Our data set's available afterwards. You can just see any one of us outside. Here's the top 25 rankings that Alexa provided us with just in the United States. This is just a big picture view of all the sites. For simplicity, we've removed all the duplicates. For example, Google syndication and Google Analytics were all combined into the big monster company Google. In the following slides, we'll highlight our top 3 talkers, or our most chatty sites. These are sites that tended to take information and then spit it out to a bunch of different sites. They'll be shown on the screens with the main site in the middle and then arrows pointing out to all the other sites. We also have our best listeners, as we call them, and those are sites that tended to take a bunch of information in instead of spitting it out. It's important to note that we only analyzed the index page. We didn't actually go into the depth of the individual websites. We only went to the index page to figure out what was going on. It's also important to note that this is a dynamic thing. It happens and it changes. So although our slides depict some things, they may not be the same every single time.
So starting off the list of what we referred to as the most chatty was AOL. When we took a snapshot of who AOL was talking to, we saw that it contacted 8 different servers out there. And it's interesting to note, AOL recently acquired Dakota, which we discussed earlier. So they made it known, they've explicitly stated that they're collecting this data and they're going to use it for profiling, user profiling for other larger services to use. So as you can see, you see these domains such as AdSonar, MathTag, Yield Manager, that sort of give you the idea that that's what's going on. Next you have ESPN. It makes sense. You have a very specific demographic that likes to check out sports, so you want to sort of tailor those ads that you're putting out there to specific teams, for example. You know, I'm not going to want to see the New York Yankees when I go visit ESPN. I might want to see the Mets. So it'd be good to get something like this and use that behavioral profiling that these servers are offering to better tailor it for the user, the end user. Next, we have the New York Times. Again, it makes sense to tailor articles to what the user likes. Now, as far as the best listeners, no real big surprise, but DoubleClick came up #1, and they're pulling data from some of the largest names out there on the web right now. We have Amazon, arguably one of the top retailers out there on the web, Microsoft, YouTube, large generator of web traffic just by nature of the media that's going through, AOL, ESPN, and IMDb. Next is Google. Now, Google and DoubleClick are really now the same thing. Google recently acquired DoubleClick for upwards of $3 billion or so, so you know it's a huge market. But Google tends to have its ad services geared towards much more social sites, whereas DoubleClick were sort of geared towards the business side of things. So we see WordPress, New York Times, PhotoBucket, MySpace, things that people go on for leisure, really. And this third slide really shows the diversity of what's available. Really, this is no longer a surprise out there. This has sort of become the norm for lots of websites. So we do see that more often times than not, when you go to a website, you're not just going to hit that original domain, but you might hit 2 or 3 others. So what exactly can we do? As users, there are plenty of plugins out there for Firefox. We've mentioned AdBlock Plus. We're currently developing our own plugin to make it more user-friendly for when the user's on a particular site. There's a lot of data that's going through. AdBlock Plus provides the data, but we want to display that data in an intuitive way, and we're looking for feedback on what those ways might be. NoScript is another popular plugin for Firefox. We also have services such as Tor and Provoxy, which offer some degree of anonymity on the web, but these are at the user level again. We can also explore legal protections. Recently, 2 claims were made with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, from the Center of Digital Democracy and the U.S. Public Interest Research Group about these privacy issues. So it's very important. People need to know what the problem is before they can even explore any of the solutions. So we want to make users more aware of what exactly they're putting out there, because maybe they'll curb some of their behavior on the internet. Maybe their Facebook profile won't have as much information or anything like that. So really, again, this talk covered what we can see at our user level. There's a lot more that goes on, and we invite the experts out there, you guys, to really speak with us about that, and to find more advanced ways of detecting some of these behaviors. Because we know that ad servers are getting more and more advanced in the techniques that they're using. It's no longer just cookies, it's more advanced scripting, and we'd like to learn about that. Also, how can we visualize this information better? There's a lot of data that goes through our hands, but really it's just a bunch of numbers and letters unless we can show the user exactly what the relationships are and the dynamics are between these servers and the resources that are being accessed. And we want to know how we can organize this better. Are there more advanced techniques out there? Please see us and discuss with us. We're using JavaScript, so those JavaScript experts out there, we want some tips on how to best tailor our plugin for Firefox. So thank you. We invite you to please come outside, find us during this weekend, and chat with us, and this will be a learning experience for both of us. Appreciate the time.
We do have time if you have questions, but let's go ahead and wait for the mic. We'll do this side first.
So I have a question. Given the prevalence of DHCP used for most home users, have you guys delved into the fact that most people don't have fixed IPs? I mean, I have lots of bandwidth at home and stuff, and I have a fixed IP because I'm a geek and I want to be able to get back into my house. But most people don't. They have DHCP coming into their house. So that means that their profile is going to change on whatever the lease time is. Have you guys thought about dealing with that aspect of it?
Definitely. We've taken a look at this, and it's no longer just you being a user out there in the web based on just your IP. What we're finding is that these servers are using more advanced sort of predictive technologies so that they can identify you just based solely on some of the behaviors you have out there. Every day, if you visit New York Times, followed by ESPN, followed by Amazon, a certain pattern, slowly you form a schema out there in the web. And these are the type of things that these ad servers are looking at. And we've considered it, and we have a lot more to look into. But again, we're at the user level, and we know these things exist, and we're learning about them also. Thank you.
Is there anything built into this program, these programs like Dakota, that age the data so that if you were to stop going somewhere, eventually it would drop out of your profile?
Well, we haven't explicitly taken a look at that. We know it's out there, and our development and our work is focused on what the user can see. We consider these things, and it surely will affect user behavior on the web, but we're looking at how users can best visualize the data. It's going to be hard for us as individuals to stop this behavior, but we want to enable the user to see, to change whatever patterns he or she has in the household in order to sort of mitigate some of those privacy effects, some of those negative effects.
Sir, I got a question. So Google and Yahoo and stuff, they get rid of their search results or searches that people make after 6 months. Do these ad companies do the same thing with these profiles? You guys know anything about the actual aspect of that?
No, what we've noticed is though, we go to DoubleClick or Dakota and we read their mission statement. We see that they're out there and they're offering these services, but they mention no explicit mechanism for how they do it and how they maintain it. And that's kind of what's dangerous, is that you have this plethora of data out there, gigabytes, terabytes, exabytes of data, and who controls it? And so we want, as more users become aware of what the problem is exactly, perhaps more of a light will be shown upon these companies to be more responsible in releasing their data, because after all, this data should be free for anyone to see.
Rather than having you said you're making a plugin for Firefox, rather than having it visualize the third-party cookies that are being populated, and rather than having it show users what sites are being contacted, such as DoubleClick, for example, why not just have those cookies get deleted at the end of a user visiting a certain site? Essentially turn them into session cookies, or turn them into cookies that are removed once I stop visiting New York Times and I navigate to a different page. Because then it's effectively they could keep a profile, but their profile would be a data set of one, right?
Well, I think these exist out there in web browsers now. You have the ability to erase sessions now on almost all of the popular browsers. And users can certainly enable that. But we want to sort of provide a real-time snapshot of what's going on, just as a tool to educate users.
I know the AdBlock plugin stops you from receiving ads, but does it stop these external connections that send information about you as well, or is it just the incoming that it blocks?
With my experience at AdBlock Plus, you can specify domain and specific resources, but as far we haven't analyzed, like on a packet level, for example, if anything is going out.
In general.
You can't stop it from going from one server to the next.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
So as you're talking about visualization, Have you considered including in the visualization some sort of composite or mosaic to show the number of different sites that can piece together information as you've gone on your trail? So even if one by one they're only getting pieces together, they're building up a profile.
Well, that's an interesting point. We've just we've taken a look at certain programs out there to build that relationship based on solely the connections that are made that we see. You know, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we'd like to know about what those connections are so that we can build a more comprehensive data set of this activity on the web. Thank you. Appreciate the time again. Have a good night.
Actually, just well.